Press Correspondents here in the US, and I'm here with Filippo Ferretti, and we're so excited to have you on tonight.
Oh, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to stay with you tonight.
Thank you. So we just want to go ahead and jump in, and could you just give me a brief description of your journalism career and kind of how you ended up where you are?
Yes, my life is pretty crazy because I'm Italian. I was born in Italy, and I started my career exactly 20 years ago. So yes, it's a long time. And 20 years in television as news producer, news anchor, news reporter. So I had the opportunity to work in Italy and for almost 10 years of my career. And now I'm here in the United States. I'm news anchor and news reporter at Univision in Tampa. Univision, as you know, it's one of the major network in Spanish here in the United States. So it's pretty crazy, as you know, because I'm Italian, living in the United States, working for a Spanish network. So, so I hope you can understand my English because in my mind there is a lot of mess sometimes with the languages. But
You speak well. You speak well. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I start my career for passion because I always dreamed to be a journalist to tell stories. I start in a newspaper. So when I think I was 14. So I asked my brother to write. So I used my brother's name. I wrote the articles, and my brother is oldest than me. Mm-hmm. So yes, so that's the way I start to tell story, and that was when I really realized this was my career. This is what I really want to do: tell the story, and that's the most amazing thing, the best decision I ever made.
Definitely, and it sounds like your brother got some free clips out of it too, so it works out for everybody.
Yeah, right. Yes. I started with a newspaper, but then I started to the television. So I work for major networks in Europe, in Italy, MTV. So I work for news in MTV, and that's opened really my career, but also and especially my mind. So that then was when I start to understand how to tell stories, and this is the most important thing for me. Yes, tell every day a different story.
Definitely. And what kind of sparked your interest to change from print media to a more broadcast network for journalism?
Sorry, repeat again. I can hear.
Sorry. What kind of sparked your interest to switch from print media to a more broadcast setting?
Yes, I think the broadcast media gave me the opportunity to be more complete. I work every day, and now, but looking at my career, I work every day for the newscast. So it's something fresh. It's something I can really work today and see immediately the results of my work. So that's, I think, is the fuel of my passion. So sometime with the print media, you have to write, you have more time to investigate, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard to spread your message to a big community, especially in Europe. There are a lot of newspapers, so it's sometimes a little bit different. But with the television, I had the opportunity to spread my message or my story or my work every day immediately to a big community.
That's amazing. And like you said, you were born in Italy. You've worked all over Europe, and now you work for a Spanish newscast in here in the United States. How do you think kind of your travel across Europe and now here in the US, as well as your upbringing in Italy, influenced the stories you tell today?
I think a lot because I was born in Florence, so a big city in Italy. Then I moved to Milan. It's another very big city. And then I study in Spain a master degree in communication. So
Mhm.
this, I think, at 24 years, I was studying in Spain and working in Italy. So I had a big opportunity to travel a lot. And
Mhm.
then, especially with MTV, and that's why I'm here in Florida right now. I was correspondent for MTV for the Latin America. So I really travel a lot for my work. I cover war in Afghanistan. I cover many things in Latin America. So this opened a lot of my mind. Opened my mind as person, as journalist. I met so many people. I saw so many different location or
Mhm.
different realities, cultures. So I think now a news reporter or news anchor, I can understand better the possibility to for my community, or when I have to approach to a different kind of news. So I think my European culture and travel a lot and be every day with so many different cultures. So
Mhm.
that helped me really a lot.
Definitely. I think it does really do well to show your range as a journalist as well. And kind of going off of that, your work on right now helped shed light on a immigration lawyer, Elvis Reyes, who actually was not an immigration lawyer, and he was responsible for defrauding hundreds of immigrants in the area who were trying to gain representation. Can you kind of walk me through the process of investigating this super impactful story for your community?
Yes, that was a really weird story
Mhm.
because here I live in Tampa, and in Tampa there is a very big, a huge Latin American community. And one day I received a message to my Facebook from Luis. He was an immigrant and was from Mexico, was an undocumented immigrant, and he told me I was came from a pastor. He said he was an attorney. Mm. So
Mhm.
I went to his house and he showed me a lot of papers, recipes, and I already realized that was a very bad story. So I
Mhm.
start to listen to him and try to help beside the story for the newscast. So I work the story for the newscast, and we have newscast at 6 p.m. At 6:10, I started to receive many messages to my Facebook, Instagram, or calls to our newsroom from other
Mhm.
immigrants, and the story was the same. But this is my attorney. I was
Mhm.
scammed too. So I started to listen to other story, and the story was really the same. That was really I was really worried about, because many of them uh, didn't want to make to call the police.
Mhm.
So I tried to investigate. I saw this pastor was not a pastor. It was not an immigration attorney. So I tried to contact the sheriff's office. I spoke with the sheriff and I explained the situation. And because people here, especially the Latin American community, immigrant community without papers, don't believe in law enforcement agency.
Mhm.
So they believe in me, but not in the sheriff. So
Mhm.
we try to put together. They make a big. One day, the sheriff's office open a big room for them, and they start to come and make the the report to the police. So this story starts to be every day big and big and big and big, and at the end,
Mhm.
I follow until the end because I promised them.
Mhm.
And at the end, this year in April, this attorney was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. So
Okay.
I was right.
Yeah, that
I
definitely
was
seems
definitely right.
fair.
Yes. And this is something I think it's more passion than my job, because my job was, and the end of my job was at the end of the first report. Maybe I can do another one, but I try really to help this community, because I saw the fear. I realized they were really scam, and I realized that the fear of the family that had a big dream to have the papers, and then they were really scam, and this dream was a nightmare at the end, because with this information, this attorney sent to immigration, many of them was deported. So many families were separate, and that was very tough story.
Definitely. And how did it feel? You said that you ran with the first instance of this coming to your Facebook from a man named Luis, and then following the newscast, you got so many messages and phone calls with people describing the same situation. How did it feel to kind of see the immediate reach of your one account of Reyes's wrongdoings?
Yes, that was at the beginning. I don't know why. I don't know. Really, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know, because I tried to investigate from this message what happened. So I start to see some recipe really in a paper. So this attorney was receiving people at the Wawa gas station. So there are many little things I start to understand that was a scam.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be very sure until to hear, especially when pastor, an attorney is a scammer. So I tried to investigate really fast, and yes, I was right.
Definitely. And how long did the process of investigating everyone's claim and kind of getting it over to the sheriff to really do something about this man, how long do you think that process took?
Especially at the beginning was very quick. Because all the first story was aired at the end of May 2019, and it was sentenced in April 2021. So less than 2 years was all the process. And if you think that there is a pandemic in the middle, so it was pretty fast.
Yeah.
Especially here in Tampa, I do a lot of noise. So that's why I think the sheriff office was so pressured to do that, because really was a lot of people. I put together all these victims in the studio. It was at least 200 people in the newscast studio.
That's good that you got that, but just that it makes me sick to think about that someone was doing that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. Because, especially for the immigrant people, that was a lot of money. Because maybe if someone took you or took me $200, $2,000, it's a lot, but doesn't change your life. But when you have $200, and this $200 is all for you, and you can really help your family, and it's a lot. So this man took all the dreams, the hopes for this family, and also that puts many of them in the way of deportation.
Definitely. And I think that it's so important that you were able to kind of pull a thread almost, and it just all fell apart, and you were able to kind of bring light to the situation and help these families gain justice and at least some kind of closure about the kind of person he really was.
Yes. And I think at the end of the day, this is our mission as journalists. So we can do something for our community more than tell the story. And sometimes there are many people in our community. I speak for the Latin American community, but there are a lot of community, white African American community, that the journalists can make the difference in our community, because we can be the voice for people that and this voice can be heard, and many of these people doesn't have voice. That's the problem. So I think this is something, and when you arrive your home at the end of your day, this
Mhm.
is something really good you can do.
Definitely. And are there any other stories in your 20-year career as a journalist that you look back on and you have a similar feeling like this one?
Yes, especially for example, in Italy, I work on a story about a big story of immigration. I was on the at the in the shore of Italy, and a big tragedy happened, and I was there for there was a just a casualty. I was there, and a boat with at least 300 immigrants from North Africa came to Europe,
Mhm.
and unfortunately they drained a lot, so a lot of deaths, and it was there. That was a very tough story because the Mediterranean Sea was a cemetery this day, and I was there. I was one of the few journalists there, and was really, really, really tough. So in this opportunity, I try to communicate this tragedy for the community, trying to be with empathy, and that sometimes is really hard. You know, when you have to tell a story very tough, it's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard. So that was a challenge, and that was a very big story. In 20 years career, I cover a lot of story. I think this was a story that impacted me a lot. The war in Afghanistan. I
Mhm.
was there for 2 months after an attack to Italian troops. Was very, very tough too. And and here in Florida, the hurricanes. The hurricanes, this is something really challenging, especially
Mhm.
when you come from Europe and you don't see the hurricane. So
Mhm.
this is something really tough.
Definitely. And as you said, you it can be really hard to kind of see these things that are can be very upsetting or horrific and have to turn around and tell the story about it. How are you kind of able to compartmentalize any of your personal feelings about some of the things that you were seeing to go ahead and kind of get the story out there?
Yeah, I think you have to be as a doctor. You have to separate your what you see as journalist and what you feel as a person, because you know this job could be very toxic if you can separate what you
Mhm.
see and what you feel. Sometimes when you have to do tough question, maybe because you have today the newscast is a product, so you have to sell the product, you have to sell your story, and sometimes you have some story, and that's maybe sounds weird, but it's the truth. When you have to have the pathos, when you have to have someone crying, is better
Yeah.
than, yeah, so I don't like this kind of the of
Yeah.
television, because
Mhm.
I don't like, and I try to don't do that, because I don't like use the pain of my source for a good news report. I don't like that. So I try to separate the personal way, but I always try to help. So if I can do something maybe outside of my news report, yes, I try every day. Many people call me or send me a message. I have some problem. Okay, this is not a story for the television, but I try to help. Maybe
Mhm.
connect with someone who can help. And I think this is the good point. Sometimes I think I'm an help center, because you always are looking for stories for our community, maybe the exclusive for our story, but sometimes it doesn't work. So I try every day to solve this problem, also if it's not for the newscast.
Definitely. And you said a kind of example of the way that you've helped people outside of the newscast was to get these undocumented people in touch with the sheriff in a way that would be less frightening to them and more of an environment where they felt like they had control to really talk about Reyes. Is there another example you can think of where you did kind of go above and beyond with a story to help people and it didn't necessarily make it on TV, but you still felt like you made an impact in your community?
Yes. Look, last week, this was the first one was last week. A man called me, he's undocumented, and called me and told me it was robbed, point of gun in his house.
Oh my gosh.
I say, okay, have you called the 911? No. Why? Because I don't have papers. I try to explain, if you are victim of a crime, doesn't you don't need to have paper. So I try. At the end, I call a sheriff's office officer to he speaks Spanish, so he went to his house, and then he made a report. So that's an example, and I never use for a newscast. So this is an example I try because I have a many colleagues that they have a big filter, so they say no, I don't need, this is not for story, for news, so I don't need.
Definitely. And kind of going off of that in terms of things that you've been able to cover and things that might be a little upsetting. You won an award actually for excellence of your coverage of a natural disaster a couple of years ago. Can you kind of walk me through the experience of covering a natural disaster?
Oh, that's crazy. I think one of the worst thing was 2 years ago. I went to the north of our state for the Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael was a category 5 or 4 hurricane. It was in 2019, and this hurricane touched down in Pensacola in the north of Florida. So I went there the day after I arrived there, and that was really incredible. So nothing was there. The city was Panama City and Mexico City, and was a ghost town. Was a devastation, total devastation. That was really, really hard. So this was for this coverage. But in Florida, we have to cover hurricane at least 3-4 times every year. Every hurricane season is right now. So I'm trying to be to stay calm, because you have to stay outside when everyone is in a shelter, in his house, maybe safe. You have to be outside looking for the disaster or waiting for the storm. And this is really, 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 really scary. I have to be honest with you. Yes, that's a really scary. I think it's a good way as journalists to make a news coverage, because you can see really you are in the where you have to be. But I don't like it. I don't like it.
How did you kind of have to hype yourself up? Because obviously, like, I've seen broadcasts where people are out there and it looks absolutely terrifying. So how do you kind of get yourself to the point where you're like, okay, I got to go out there and do this. Like, let's go.
That's a good point. So I try to be as myself. So I prepare, and I prepare as usual. So also the makeup for the newscast. So I try to be as more normal as usual, and I think this helps me. And when I'm live, also, okay, I think during the hurricane coverage is not so difficult, because you have just to share what you see in this moment. So the storm, the wind, the sea, it's no big deal. And I don't know what I have to do, but I try to be more calm possible. And also a friend of mine jokes me, because one day I was during the storm, and it was my photographer, and I put the cologne just 5 minutes before to go on air, and so he told me, "Hey, why you put the cologne?" I try to be myself as every day, also during the storm.
Maybe the routine helps a little bit. It might not make sense, but
yes, I think this helps me a lot.
Definitely. And kind of going back into more information about kind of where you've lived and where you've been able to travel. You do speak multiple languages, and how do you think that that's helped you kind of cultivate relationships with sources in the Latin American community, as well as your relationship with sources abroad in Europe?
Yes, a lot, definitely.
Mhm.
And I study English at school. I
Mhm.
study French at school. I study Greek as I speak Italian, but I never study Spanish.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I studied Spanish when at the university was
Mhm.
very very little. So I tried to study by myself because when I had the opportunity to work with MTV at the beginning of my career, they sent me to Spain as correspondent, and
Mhm.
in that moment, MTV was working with Euronews. So I was covering different news in the same news in different languages, in Italian, in French, and in Spanish. So I think, and I don't know. Today I speak Italian, Spanish, and I speak just a few English. Sometimes has a
Mhm.
little mess when I
Mhm.
have, because I try to translate, especially at this time after a day of work. But I think this is very very important. My advice to every young student is learn another language. That's so important. Here in the United States, that's not so common.
Mhm.
So, and I think this is a big lack, because when you know another language, you have the key for another door. And maybe this door could open a brighter future. And I think I'm the exactly example. I'm Italian because I know Spanish. Now I'm news anchor in a Spanish television. And my Spanish, believe me, is very good, much better than my English.
You're doing so well, though. I wouldn't have known that this was a struggle at all. Definitely. I do think it's really important. In my experience in public high schools in the US, they do teach it, but there is never that immersion that you really get. They're like, here's Spanish, or I think my school also had German, and then it's like, okay, bye. You don't really get to spend a lot of time unless you know people, or live in a community where it's the only language spoken. I don't think it really makes that much of an impact.
Right. And here in the United States, we have great opportunity to know people from all around the world. So
Definitely.
also step in a store and try to listen, to understand,
Mhm.
to explore a different culture can help you to open your mind. And it's not so difficult here
Mhm.
to learn a language. So I think this is a very important key for the career, especially for a journalist, because when you don't want to be a journalist and you want to work, for example, in a marketing agencies, PR
Mhm.
agents, this helps you a lot.
Definitely. And how important would you say your experience as a multimedia storyteller has been for your career, especially now where you are in Tampa?
Sorry, repeat again.
Sorry. How would you say your experience as a multimedia storyteller has really impacted and bolstered your career all around the world, but especially here in the United States?
Yes, I think the multimedia is today is very very important. So
Mhm.
I try to be not just television, but to be 360, because the future is the social media, the future is the web, is not just the
Mhm.
television. So I try to do a great work in my social media or in the social media of the television. I think I have more view in the Facebook Live from my TV channel. Yes, because I think there is a different way to communicate. You you have the opportunity to to talk with the people, and I think the engagement you can create, it's so important, and this is the really connection you can have with your community. And I love to do that. I love to do that, telling my story, so the story I'm working, or something people can really uh, understand or learn about something happened, especially during the pandemic. That was, I think, a good tool we use to communicate with our community. And today, when we work, as many of us are, when we are reporting, we work as media multimedia journalists, so we are our photographer.
Mhm.
So I think this gave give us the opportunity to really to do a lot of things. So when I start my career, I was every day with my producer, I was every day with my photographer, and now when I go outside, I'm alone. So I think now I have to be cameraman, I have to be editor,
Mhm.
I have to write, to drive, many things. So this gave me the opportunity to really to do a lot of things and to know how to do a lot of things and to have the open mind to do and try to do every day better.
Of course. And is there anything else you want our viewers at the AFC to know about your career, or anything that you have coming up that you want us to definitely reach out, like, share, follow for?
No, I my advice can be, don't don't be shy to,
Mhm.
if your language of your English in this case is no good, because sometimes I have colleagues that doesn't know very well the language, so maybe they are shy and they can block or can avoid some
Mhm.
possibility, maybe also for an interview. But
Mhm.
I try to communicate also if my English is not very good. So I
It's
try.
very good. It's very good, I
Yeah,
promise.
that's the third time you told me. I start believing. So and always do better. I think this is the advice I can give you.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. This has been a very awesome interview, and we're so excited to have you. And hopefully, we'll be seeing more of you with the
Oh,
AFC.
of course. Thank you very much, Dana.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.